we are back again. I do apologise, experiencing some technical difficulties. This is take 2 attempt at the stream. If you were on the first one watching, very, very sorry. You need to get off it and get onto this one. Hopefully people will figure that out. The second one has gone live now. We were just getting to the start of it. Championship games this week, and the FA Cup means that there's only 8 championship fixtures this weekend. We're going to try and pick apart the teams that have stayed in and the teams that have gone out, and who's actually going to be helped by having gone out of the cup. Let's just prevaricate a little bit and try and get some people back from the original stream. But as I say, make yourself known if you're on the stream. Get your comments in whichever game we are talking about. Half of the top 6 are not going to be playing this weekend. So only Leeds, Norwich and Sheffield United playing. So big chance for those to get one over on the teams around them and put a few points distance in between. Let's start off at the top, and it is Leeds United top. Another defeat for them last week at Stoke. 3 defeats in 4. They go away to Rotherham. Pontus Jansson is suspended. He had 2 yellows against Stoke this past week. Calvin Phillips returned, so I'd be interested to see if Bielsa just does a like-for-like swap. Not that they're exactly like-for-like, because one of them is a central midfielder who's been played in defence, and one of them is a towering centre-back. But we've spoken on here before about how Bielsa is going to fit Phillips and Forshaw into the same team when all Cooper, Janssen, Phillips and Forshaw are all available, and how he's going to go about doing that. Well, maybe Phillips comes in Janssen's position, but what I will say is, having seen Rotherham a few weeks ago at Ipswich, the aerial threat that Rotherham had was absolutely colossal, and Janssen, you won't get many centre halves in the Championship better than him, or rather better at heading the ball away than him. So Janssen is going to be a big miss for Leeds this week. Be very interested to know whether people think that Phillips can go in and do that role, or would that leave them short in the centre half position. Leeds injury crisis easing a little bit. Dallas back training. Berardi was back with the under-23s, but had a bit of a setback. So was Brown. Bamford's expected to be back with the under-23s next Monday, I think. And Douglas is also back training. So you would expect Leeds to feel fairly confident going off to Rotherham. I'm sure there'll be a big Leeds contingent there taking over the New York Stadium. Hopefully for Leeds now, the Spygate business, hopefully people will start getting bored of that, because there was a small sense that it was becoming a bit of a circus and a bit of a distraction for them. So they will hope that that is now yesterday's news. 11 championship clubs have signed a letter to the EFL asking for more information. I think the wording was not asking for sanctions to be made, but asking for more information on what it was exactly that Leeds had done. I haven't read too much into that, but I'm sure we'll get something back fairly soon. But hey, I think we've spoken enough about that. Check out the video elsewhere on the channel. Lots of views on that Spygate video. So I would suspect, like most people, that Leeds should be back on track and should be able to go to Rotherham. The obvious outlier that might give Rotherham a chance is no Janssen, but we would assume if Leeds can cope with the aerial threat without Janssen, you'd expect take that out of the game, and they should be going to Rotherham and winning, one would have thought. So the big game this week is at Norwich at Carrow Road, we have second place Norwich playing fourth place Sheffield United. And if West Brom hadn't won on Monday night against Bolton, this would have been second against third. But it's still a real humdinger at the top. Interested in the form going into it. Norwich had a little slip in a hard run of fixtures. 3 points in 4 games was a drop off. That had coincided with Leeds and West Brom dropping off as well. I was at their game at Birmingham, against Birmingham this past Friday, and I thought they were really good. Birmingham didn't really lay much on them, despite getting back in the game after going 1-0 down very temporarily. Sheffield United, on the other hand, kind of done the exact opposite. They'd had this 4-game streak. They were the only team in the top 6 to be winning at the time when Norwich and West Brom and Leeds were all slipping. So they had a big swing in the points against those 3 teams. Although last week, off they went to Swansea, had a good first half, but went down 1-0 in the second half. So you've basically got a team that had a bit of a sticky run and has just had a win against a team that had a really good run and has just had a defeat. In terms of a pure football match, this should be absolutely brilliant because both teams are very much ball-playing teams. Both teams will really want to just attack. They're hardly sit-back teams, either of them. There's an interesting parallel in the styles because Sheffield United seems relentless, constantly trying to bomb forward and get up the pitch and get as many players, centre-halves, wing-backs, centre midfielders into the final third as possible. Whereas Norwich, it seems a little bit more cat and mouse, where they'll keep the ball a bit, and then you see these switches out wide, and then all of a sudden, very quickly, I'd seen on Twitter that Norwich somehow had managed to spend not very much time in the final third, but yet have more touches in the penalty box than most teams. So it shows that Norwich's attacks are kind of clinical, kind of well timed, and really quite potent. So it's going to be interesting there. I assume Norwich would hope that they can pick off Sheffield United while they're up the pitch, spending the whole game trying to attack. What I will say is that at home, and Birmingham didn't really do this. Birmingham, we know, leave those 2 centre midfielders in front. When teams have got after Norwich, and you look, they've lost at home in the top 6, lost at home to Derby, who scored 4 there, West Brom, who scored 4 there, and Leeds, who scored 3 there. And these obviously are all teams who would have got after Norwich. So interesting to see how many Sheffield United can put on the board, because you'd think they'd be capable of scoring, but Sheffield United, like Norwich, don't have the best record against top 6 teams. Something has to give in this game. Norwich still have a couple of injuries. I'm pretty sure we'll see Buendia back. He just had a dead leg last week. Closer, we don't expect back very soon, but he doesn't need an operation. And forgive me, I'm not too sure on Teti and Leitner, but Vrancic and Tribal were pretty good last week in those holding midfield positions there. So Norwich be interesting. Sheffield United have got a clean bill of health, and they're just figuring out how to use Gary Medine and Kieran Dowell. I listened to the Blades pod, which I would recommend this morning driving into work, and they said that not Medine's fault, but as soon as they saw him, the style changed a little bit, and they played low quality balls into Medine just because he was there and he needed higher quality balls. So you'd expect you might see Medine at some point, especially if Sheffield United are either chasing or in the game and need to do something different. Although you would suspect he is going to need some decent service, but you can get at that Norwich defence. So really interesting game. Look, if Norwich won 4-2, I wouldn't be surprised. If Sheffield United won 4-2, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't really expect either team to take a pasting off the other team, but both teams are capable of winning this. Both teams are capable of losing. I suppose you'd fall just slightly in Norwich's favour being it's a home game, although Norwich's record against home teams in the top 6 isn't great. I think just what we want to see is both teams go at it, which I think they will, and you could get another one of these ridiculous Carrow Road games with 4 or 5 plus goals. I keep seeing on Who Scored up the side, right where it says Ipswich have conceded 2 goals in the last 13 away games, which we'll come on to. Norwich have scored 3 goals, excuse me, in their past 6 home games. So I would just, I guess, fall on the side of Norwich. A draw wouldn't be a disaster, given that no one's going to come and overtake them because they're not playing because of the FA Cup. So we know as the weeks go on and the pressure builds, just being higher up in the positions there is probably of benefit. So you just wouldn't want to shed the 3 points. And then obviously Norwich versus Leeds, Norwich away at Leeds next week. Massive couple of games for Norwich. I must just say I've been on 11 minutes now and it doesn't appear the comments are working. I do apologise if you're watching and you're trying to comment. I cannot see them. I cannot see anything. We had technical troubles with the first attempt to stream today, so I do apologise. Stick your comments in the normal way afterwards if you have something important to say, and I'll deal with it on the next video on Sunday. Right, let's move on to, there's some FA Cup stuff in the way here. So we've got West Brom going to Brighton in the FA Cup, so no Championship game for them. We've got Borough at home to Newport, and then we've got Derby away to Accrington, so that's the rest of the top 6. Then we've got Bristol City who host Bolton, so that's an all-Championship game. So looking at those 4 ties, you would, let's just go with the higher ranked team on each side. Let's assume West Brom lose to Brighton, Borough beat Newport, Derby beat Accrington, and Bristol City beat Bolton. It's going to be very interesting as we go into February in terms of potential fixture pile-up now. And in some ways, Norwich, Leeds and Sheffield United, they're all out of it. And what that means they're going to avoid is, I think it starts the 9th of February through to the 23rd. A lot of these teams are now going to have Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. So 2 3-game weeks in a row, and potentially you'd make Borough favourites to beat Newport and Derby to beat Accrington and Bristol City. So potentially then you're going to get 2 3-game weeks in a row, plus your 6th round tie if you go through. There's going to be another cancellation later in the season. So you're looking at potentially Norwich, Leeds, Sheffield United up the top, really having a little bit of an advantage in terms of rest. Although there's some weird ones here because West Brom's already scheduled on February the 19th at QPR, whereas Borough and Bristol City aren't. I guess there's some reason why they can't do that. And then Derby, there's a weird one. They've got the 5 games, but they seem to have until Monday an extra recovery day for their Derby game away at Forest. So even these minimal things, the extra days recovery and whatnot, is going to be very, very interesting. I don't want to be a killjoy, but I kind of think the teams that got knocked out, particularly at the top of the league, seem to have it better. Although knowing Lee Johnson in Bristol City's terms, he probably just wants to keep his streak going. So a nice home game against Bolton is good for them. So I'd be interested in comments how you think, is that a help or a hindrance still being in the FA Cup for some of these teams? We can't comment on the live feed apparently because YouTube's broke, but do comment on the video. Let's carry on. So then 8th place Hull, they're going to 11th place Blackburn, and if I quickly take a look at the table, Hull can go on to 43 points, which would put them 1 game behind Derby in 6th and 1 point behind Bristol City in 7th. So Hull on this ridiculous run. If you watch the top 4 video, we keep getting asked about Hull, can they get up into the top 6, etc. And Gab Sutton pointed out the front 3, Grzycki, Bowen's been absolutely brilliant, and Campbell up there in this ridiculous run they're on. So Blackburn are also on a good run, and I saw Blackburn last week. They've got 3 wins on the trot, and one of them was against West Brom. Blackburn are very, very sort of stable. You know, they're not pragmatic like say Tony Pulis or a Mick McCarthy team like that, but they're very, very solid. They're very well drilled. They know who the players they need to get on the ball are, as in Armstrong, Dack, you know, to maybe feed Graham further up the pitch to get the goals. So Blackburn's a hard away game, and obviously they've got this good home record going back into last season. Hull, they're amazing streak. I mean, you can hardly criticise them for drawing away at Villa. They drew away at Villa last week, so the win streak ended. You just think Hull can beat anybody at the moment, and I don't know. I'm kind of thinking draw or Hull away win in this one. Let's go with Hull to keep their ridiculous run going, just for that sheer goal threat that Ipswich didn't have when I saw them at Blackburn last week. I do think you can possibly get at Blackburn in that way. Let's talk about one of the Tuesday night games. We have Swansea in 9th versus Birmingham in 11th. Birmingham have slipped away a little bit. Like I say, they're down to 11th. They had been up to 8th, I think. Their last 6, 1-1, drawn, lost. So they've tailed off a little bit. And I was a bit surprised by a couple of their bits of defending last week against Norwich. As I said in my match review, the first goal by Norwich was great, but then an unchallenged shot from on the edge of the box and the keeper kind of too far out, and a free header from a corner. I thought Birmingham were a bit more solid than that. So hopefully they're not going to be one of these teams that kind of exceeds the expectations and then tails off as the season goes off and finishes a few places lower than they should do. That said, Hotter did look really good on the right, linking up the play and creating for Birmingham. Swansea, really good result against Sheffield United. You still get the sense with Swansea of a work in progress, and Birmingham doesn't feel like a work in progress. Birmingham feels like a well-functioning team. So let's say Birmingham can go to Swansea and get a draw on the Tuesday night. Let's back that one as a draw. Forest, I'm going to have a chat with Dor on tour tomorrow about Forest and ask him if the season has completely fallen apart. They're down to 12th. They've obviously sacked their manager and brought Martin O'Neill in. Obviously the points are fairly tight. So Forest 12th on 39. They can get up a few places, you know, into 8th, 9th with a couple of wins, you would think. But the gap to Derby in the playoffs is 7 points now. So you'd be looking at that game in a few weeks' time, the Forest versus Derby game at the City Ground, Monday the 25th possibly of February. You'd think they'd be looking at that if you can string a few wins together to take a definite 3 points out of Derby, if a trajectory upward is going to be what they have. They're at home to Wigan. Wigan are in 20th. Obviously they have this pretty poor away record. Wigan had that weird win over Villa where they pretty much thrashed them a couple of weeks ago, beat them 3-0. So I just don't think Wigan are capable of that type of result away from home. Be interesting to see what O'Neill does. Like I say, I'm going to find out more tomorrow on Forest. I can't see Wigan getting a point here. I really can't. I think Martin O'Neill's going to get his first win in this one. So I'm backing Forest to beat Wigan. On we go. This is the game I'm going to be at. It's Villa in 13th versus good old Ipswich in 24th position. Villa 4 without a win. They've got their new goalie in. A few questions still being asked about him, and a few questions still being asked about Villa's slightly leaky defence. Although, in terms of a Dean Smith team, it's not really ever a defence defending. It's, you know, a whole organism moving together, and it's the possession and everything that kind of feeds into that defensive record. You think sometimes when you think back to Brentford, in theory, Villa should have a bigger budget to get better players than Brentford, and I have it on good authority, shall I say the figure, that Villa offered Chris Mepham nearly 5 figures more per week to come to Villa, but he wanted to go off to be one of 4 centre-halves at Bournemouth. So be interesting to see if Smith goes for another centre-back or he goes to Brentford for anybody else. Balassi has gone from Villa. I think he was taking up quite a bit of wages. Didn't, little flashes while he was at Villa, but didn't really show the form that saw him transfer to Everton for 30 million, I think, a couple of years ago. So he's gone, but it's difficult with Ipswich. Even with the new signings in, Alan Judge made his debut, had Quainer up front, Will Keane playing off. You had Elder in the team as well. These 6 new Ipswich players. James Collins has played well pretty much in both the games so far. Ipswich have just become whipping boys and have just got this terrible, terrible away record. Like I say, you can see 2 goals in 13 consecutive away games. So that means they've won one of those games. They had to score 3 goals against Swansea. And just the soft centre of Ipswich, you know when goal 1 goes in that goal 2 is coming 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later. So really, even as a dyed-in-the-wool Ipswich fan, I can't predict anything other than a Villa victory. And we're at the stage of Ipswich's away form where a 1-0 defeat would actually be an improvement. You just don't want this nailed-on 2-0 result that seems to accompany every away game for Ipswich. After that, Sheffield Wednesday at home, and then Ipswich go to Norwich for that East Anglian derby, which could be uncomfortable viewing. QPR, they're off to Pompey in the Cup, so they join the 5 games in 2 weeks club in February. Stoke versus Preston is a championship game that will go ahead. Preston had a really, I thought, surprising, thrashed QPR 4-1 last week, and 3 of their new signings all scoring in that game, as well as Alan Brown getting yet another goal. No links I've seen away for him in the transfer window. And Stoke, Nathan Jones got his first win against Leeds last week at the end of the Spygate scenario. Said he changed system, knowing that Bielsa had called out that he'd been looking at the Luton formations. Although, again, with Spygate, I think people are really reading too much into it now. And I think someone like Bielsa, 90% of his match day decisions are going to be based on what he's seeing right in front of his face. The research might go into the preparation and the odd call, but, these managers, they know the game when they're in game, and, perhaps once the preparation's done, it's, let me know what you think in the comments, but surely it's 90% what you're seeing and what you're getting fed back from the info that the guys wear on the heart rate monitors and whatnot in terms of fitness. The general feeling of Stoke is that they're underperforming their squad. So it's not too far for Preston to travel, is it? I'll probably find out it's like 2 hours now, but my northwest West Midlands geography now can't be that far, can it? I'm going to back Stoke for this one. I think Jones is going to go on a little bit of a run. It won't be easy because Preston are as hard to play against, but maybe a little newish manager bounce now, having lost a couple already for Stoke. Chelsea versus Sheffield Wednesday. So Wednesday have no championship action there. 2 more games and then, no, 1 more game, and then Bruce is in and he's coming to Ipswich the following week. So we'll get a look at Sheffield Wednesday then. Brentford also are playing in the Cup, and I must give a plug. Barnet versus Brentford. I will be at that game, checking the now Chris Mepham-less Brentford out. Always enjoy watching Brentford. The football has still succeeded through 3 or 4 different managers now, so look out for the review, sort of, I don't know, 10:30, 11:15 Monday night. Give that a watch for an update there. Millwall also in the Cup. Millwall and Bolton, part of these bottom teams who have still got Cup games, they're at home to Everton, so again they're going to get fixture run, but I'd say more than any other team, Millwall have been a good momentum team this year. I think they've not won many games at all, but I think they've won 3 on the trot twice in a row this season, so that's 18 points they've got in those quick little splurges, which I think is more than, or exactly Ipswich's total for the whole season. Let me just check my table to bring it back. Yeah, exactly that. So, and I think Norwich, Leeds and Hull have all done that in consecutive games at some point this season. So it'll be interesting to see if Millwall can get another little run going there. Got Ben Marshall back now playing on the left, getting those crosses in Last one we'll talk about is Reading host Bolton, 22nd versus 23rd. So if, like me, you're a supporter of a bottom 6 team, it's not actually Norwich Sheffield United that's the real big game. It's this one down the bottom. Bolton, a lot of publicity on Monday. I think the Sky viewers would have seen the tennis balls and the protests, so they did get the message out about how they feel about Ken Anderson's dealings there at the top of the club. Interesting to see how that transpires with, you know, alleged non-payments and whatnot being banded about. Bolton have lost 3 on the bounce now. After that strange thing where they'd lost for weeks and weeks and weeks, no wins, got a win and a draw, and they were out of the bottom 3. So that's how it can change down the bottom there if you are in touch. Reading, Nelson Oliveira on loan, very interesting player. I believe was at Forest, wasn't he? And he signed for Norwich for 7 million, I think. Definitely an interesting character. Sounded off a little bit before the East Anglian derby last year. From what I understand, bit of a funny character if his head's not right, and didn't mesh with Daniel Farker, and has really been out of the team for a long while and surplus to requirements. I'm sure if he was signed for 7 million, he's making a pretty penny. So Reading have invested in a forward there who is proven at Championship level there. He will get them goals if his head's right, and he might enjoy being a bigger fish in a smaller pond there at 23rd or 22nd rather place Reading, rather than second place Norwich. Remember, we saw the signing of Mitrovic on loan. Everyone said it was the signing of the season last year. If Oliveira can get anywhere between 7 and 12 goals between now and the end of the season in these last 18 games, you'd look at it and you'd say, great signing, good job. I think most people looking at it now, given the trouble that Ipswich are in, given the financial constraints of Bolton, would probably be thinking in terms of Reading might be the ones to get away from the bottom. Although we've seen with the Hull situation, although I don't know if anyone else has got the quality down there to do it, we have seen 3 or 4 wins and you are away and clear. I'm going to back Reading to get the win here, and it could be an interesting one for Bolton because they've actually managed to get a 3-game week this week. You know, we obviously said Bolton are at Bristol City in the Cup. This is a Tuesday night game I'm talking about, by the way. Sorry if I didn't mention that. So definitely in terms of rest, Reading I think have probably got the edge on this one, and maybe Tuesday night they could possibly be leaving the bottom 3 if we're expecting Rotherham to lose away at Leeds. Thank you everybody for watching. I do apologise, something's obviously gone awry with the stream, so if you are sitting there commenting on the live feed, I'm very sorry, I cannot see it. I promise I'm not ignoring you, I cannot see it, something has gone wrong. We'll try and get that sorted out for the next stream. I did, as usual, put the shout out for some questions. We've got a couple in here, I think we've covered them. Connor asking about, he says he's worried as a Leeds fan, given Jansen's not there and Rotherham had that big aerial threat. Yeah, we'll see. That would be Rotherham's way of getting at Leeds, if they can. GCO4's asked about Marcus Evans' interview. The reclusive Ipswich chairman spoke again, kind of written Q&A. I don't think we learned anything we didn't know already, but at least this time he wasn't on video reading academy players' names off a flip chart out of shot. So some improvement there if he's just making a statement rather than pretending to be interviewed. Lots of good stuff coming up on the channel. Again, I apologise for the technical difficulties today. You'll probably see a aborted first attempted stream there where we did have a load of people and a load of commenters. So I'm sorry if you weren't able to get back involved in the second one, and I hope you've watched the re-recorded effort. We've got on the Blue Monday podcast the usual excellent preview from Ipswich and Harry from Bath. Check that out, especially if you're a Villa fan, see the opposition team's thoughts. I'm going to be speaking to Dor on Tour tomorrow at some point, talking about Forest. Should be speaking to another Ipswich statistician about a league table simulator that does thousands and thousands of projections to give quite a high mathematical probability. I'm always interested in that stuff. We'll see what he's got to say. Saturday, Villa, Ipswich. Sunday will come live stream, and I promise you'll be able to get involved. Sunday night, Blue Monday podcast. Monday night, Barnet versus Brentford. So really looking forward to a load of good stuff. Thank you for watching. Give me a thumbs up again. Don't call me out in the comments. I'm sorry the YouTube's broken or whatever and the feed's not working properly. So give us some nice comments, some questions ahead. I'll tell you what, if there's enough questions, I'll answer them in a separate video at some point tomorrow because I am not at work. Please hit that subscribe button. Really helps. We've gone over 4,000 this past couple of weeks. We'd love to build it up and become the best place for good, not too partisan, sensible, balanced championship chat. So hit that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom. And if you're at any of the games I go to, just drop me a message. I'll follow you back and DM you and come say hello.